Hello, my name is Batchelor, and I'd like to share some thoughts I have on supporting startup businesses as they really get underway and want to thrive and become not just startups forever, but really truly develop themselves. So I'm going to talk through designing the absolute best business. That's the subject matter of what we're talking about today. So I'm going to cover a number of elements in this presentation. And just to give you a little bit of perspective for myself, I've started at, let me think now, must be at least 4 businesses. And I've probably helped hundreds of other startup businesses throughout my time. And I find that there's 4 key areas that people are challenged by when they start a business. And I wanted to talk to them today, as well as explaining what the basic challenges are of business startups. I want to talk about the finance challenges, the challenges you experience with people that you are hiring involved in the business, getting into that, what considerations you need to think about when it comes to considering the processes on the way your business is going to operate. And I also want to pay some time to considering technology. So that's kind of the content piece that I want to share with you today. So let's start with a little bit of context. All of you that are starting up businesses are excited and enthusiastic. And I love this quote by Seth Godin. Seth says that the only thing worse than starting something and failing is not starting something. And this is really the entrepreneurial spirit of the startup community. When we think about it, we're not actually fearful of failing. Failing is a learning opportunity. Failing is a way of us discovering what doesn't work, what did work. But sometimes having that great idea, that great potential, and being afraid to give it its space, give it its opportunity, give a chance for it to actually move, go forward, see what happens with it, is something that we can regret. So bringing this background here, we have this quote that says, the only thing worse than starting something and failing is not starting something. So maybe we need to remember that nothing can ever succeed unless you give it a go. So be brave, be courageous, and try and see what potential there is for your business, your startup, and how it might progress. So why do startups fail? Well, unfortunately, a significant proportion of startups fail. Typically within the first 3 years of their operation is where they like to fail. If you can keep going beyond 3 years, you're more likely to succeed in some shape or form. But key areas where you're likely to fail are going to be areas like poor financial management. And I'll talk some more about each of these areas shortly. But think about it in terms of challenges to the way that you manage, operate, and administer money and all the other financial transactions for your business. Not doing that or getting it right can be a real challenge for any business. So when you're a startup, it's even more of a risk. Having the wrong people involved, really getting in with the wrong people, with the wrong style, with the wrong ideas, mindsets, enthusiasm for what you're doing can be another challenge. Not having the right processes, not having any processes. The number of times I've had conversations with startup founders, and one of the first things I say to them is, so how do you do this? Or, do you have a process in place for checking in with your supply chain to make sure things are arriving when they should be? What happens if they don't? Do you have a process for following up? And they kind of go, I don't know, I make it up as it happens. And then technology disconnections, thinking that technology is going to be the answer to everything for you. Yes, this day and age, and particularly over the last year or so, we've really had to rely heavily on technology, connecting like we are today with the wonders of the internet to connect and share content in asynchronous timing, synchronous timing, to learn things from people all over the world. it's a wonderful thing in some ways, but it's also a real challenge because it puts a huge dependency on technology. And that in itself gives us a risk if that technology is not going to be successful or is going to be a weak spot for us. And I'll talk some more to that when we get to that piece. So let's begin by talking finances. And really, when it comes down to it, finances is the thing that the majority of startup communities, startup ideas, startup, everything, whatever word you want to put after startup or before startup, get challenged by. And I want to talk through the challenge pieces and then maybe give you some tips and helpful things that you can consider building into the way you manage your finances so that you can be successful, because I don't want you to fall the wayside of so many other organizations who are starting up that don't consider these things. So when it comes down to it, it's often not the lack of money. Investors see a great idea, venture capital, angel investors, seed funders, all sorts of people, even, somebody that you've known who wants to invest in your idea thinks it's a good idea. It's not the lack of the funds that causes the problem. It's actually the way those funds are managed that causes the problem. And that's where the weak spot arises. So some things to think about here as you go forward with your business processes, business activities, buying and selling, how you get money into your business, how money gets spent out of your business. First and foremost, don't spend as you get. It's not about as quick as money comes in, you spend it. This is not some young child's piggy bank that gets raided at every holiday to be put in. This is about a business need to be sensible. So make sure that you have some thought when you're going to spend. And I'll talk a little bit more to that in a moment. But don't spend for today as though you don't have a thought for tomorrow, because the chances are there'll be another cost coming up tomorrow or another cost. And even though you might have the money in the bank today, you might not have the money in the bank tomorrow because you've already spent it. So we need to be thinking about a fluidity over time of finances. And this is for any business starting up, no matter how small or how big it is. Don't make spending decisions from the heart. Think to yourself, why is this spend worthwhile? It's not about, well, I'd really like a red one of those, or wouldn't it be nice if we had? Those are emotion-driven, heart-driven spending patterns. You've got to disconnect from that to be successful. Don't think finances will just work themselves out. Far too often I have conversations with founders or leaders of business startups who say, well, it'll sort itself out. I'm sure it'll work itself out. I'm sure it'll come round. That's not going to happen. You need to plan and prepare. So successful startups have these things in common. They have robust financial record keeping. At any moment of the day, at any time, you can pull up information that tells you what your cash flow is, what's in your bank accounts, and what bookkeeping activity is taking place. You need to have this record keeping to be strong and robust for the future. It's no good to just say, oh, well, whatever's in the bank is what I've got to play with. You need to have cash flow management. Cash flow management that covers a period of time. And this takes me to my next bullet here, keeping a constant reserve of funds. Things happen. Who knew what 2020 would bring around in terms of the COVID pandemic? Who knew how that was going to impact people and businesses? So you need to have a reserve of funds in your business to deal with the unexpected. If you don't, then it becomes really, really difficult, really, really risk likely, and kind of a weakness for your business in terms of financial strength. So I always recommend that you keep 6 months of cover. You may not be able to get there straight away, but I think all startup businesses should try within their first 3 years of operation to get 6 months of cover. What I mean by 6 months of cover is not cover for everything you might possibly spend in 6 months, but all those non-negotiable bills, the rent for the premises, other leased items, you know, amenities, utilities, all sorts of other services that you have to have to operate the business. Not the discretionary stuff, but they have to have. May not be your total spend over 6 months, but it means that you can keep the lights on of a business if anything happens. And going back to what I was talking about on the previous slide, about making purchases with a clear benefit, it's not about heart driven, it's about making sure that your purchase is made with a clear understanding of what the benefits are going to be going forward. Then what about people? Now, on a personal level, I'm very, very engaged in looking at the people side of any business. I feel that too many people, no pun intended, focus heavily on operational activity, functions, products, and don't consider the people in a business. So first and foremost, my first bullet is don't hire yourself. Now, I'm not talking about putting yourself on the employee payroll. I'm talking about don't get caught up in only hiring people that look like you, speak like you, talk like you, think like you, because you need to have differences and diversity in an organization to be willing to challenge and provoke thoughts and opportunities for innovation. If you don't have that, then you're going to be challenged. So please, 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 when you're looking to hire, don't fall into the trap of just mirroring yourself. It may sound strange to some people, but don't hire friends and family unless you have no option but to. Maybe you do have a family or a friend who's best placed to do this, but personal relationships and business don't mix well. So many times I find that the weaknesses in the people side of startup businesses and early development businesses are because people have hired people they know too well before the business started, and then there's a strain in that friendship, that relationship. There's not the clear understanding of what's expected of the individual, even though the job might be clear and in the mind of yourself as a founder or startup, one of the co-founders of a startup, you think you've made it clear, but it can cause problems. So try and stay away from that. Hire people who bring benefits to the business. Don't hire people just to move things. Be clever, be smart. Look at people who bring attributes, qualities, skill sets, competencies that can help your business thrive. Don't just box people in to a little square of activity. Think about opportunities that they might have to actually evolve and develop some of the other skill sets to benefit the medium and long term of your business. As I said when I talked about hiring people, and I've said a few times already, be prepared to have people around you that are willing to challenge your decisions. If you're a solopreneur, then find yourself a mentorship network or somebody who can be a co-collaborator on some things, who's willing to challenge you. It's so easy for us to think inside our head what we think will work best, but we need people to challenge us back and say, not so sure about that. So be prepared for that pushback and make sure that you get people around who feel confident enough to challenge you. And then do consider if you are the best person to be in charge. So often I have conversations, and it's a real challenging conversation, I'll be honest with you. A founder is running the company. Maybe it's only got 20, 25 people. Maybe it's only got 5 people, whatever it may be. And they're in charge. They're all the key decision making. They do everything that's needed to make sure that the business runs. But they may not be the best person. They may actually be the worst person because they may be the ideas person. I gave one conversation, there was a manufacturing company, and the CEO of that company was the founder and the ideas guy who created the principles of what they were creating and manufacturing to sell. And they were doing quite well financially. But I had to have a difficult conversation with him because his space was really research, development, innovation, product design, product development. He wasn't a strategic thinker. So be prepared to look at yourself and consider if this is the right role for you to be leading the company. What about the processes? Well, everything you do in a business is a process. There's no getting away from it. You do things, you are things, you make things, whatever it is that your business does. An action is a process. You put something in, you get something out, and hopefully you're learning. Hence the little image I have up here with a feedback loop. Because every time you output something, you're learning to make the input and the process better each time. So do capture consistent processes. Get your sales and supply processes perfected. These are going to be key things. They're making you money and getting you goods in if you're going to be selling products. If you're going to be more service oriented, then think about the supply of knowledge capital. Who's going to be supplying that knowledge to people? Is it just you or are there other people? Think about what that process is going to be. Do make sure you also have clear guidance so others can follow what's happening. It's not good enough to be saying, oh, well, it's just this way, and you know it in your head, because you might not be around all the time to show it to somebody else and help them understand what needs to be done. So make sure you're capturing every process that you do, even if, and I've done this with a number of organizations, even if it's a very short video with commentary to capture what happens, rather than writing fancy booklets and everything like that. I've seen some of the best captures of process guidance being done with a cell phone and just talking into it while somebody is videoing what's happening as they walk through a process. It makes it so real and so helpful for people. And then don't let them go stale. Your processes need to refresh and be reviewed regularly to make sure they're always the most efficient they can be. Finally, technology. So first and foremost, I want to tell you something. There's no such thing as a technology solution. There's a technology that enables a solution, but the solution is the process that the technology is going to operate under. So don't think that you can just bring some IT in and it's going to work wonders to solve all your problems. Likelihood is it's not. So think about it. Think about what that might look like. There's no such thing as technology solutions because there's no such thing as a solution that relies purely on technology. All that you can do is buy a technology that will work for you in your business. So don't get caught up in nice, shiny objects. Don't get caught up in just doing spend to save something. Make sure you're spending to benefit the business and can have a clear return on investment that you've calculated. If you're going to spend $20,000 a year on some technology, it's no good to just say, oh, well, I can cover 20,000 back. You want to see what the benefits are beyond that. It may be more money. It may be the way people get access to things. It may be your whole persona. Think about websites and stuff like that. Think about how the technology is going to benefit your business going forward. And be clear that you're buying technology, not just for today, but for the future. Don't get sucked in to buying technology that is only fit for purpose today. It needs to be fit for purpose today and all days going forward. So let's wrap up what I've been talking about today. 4 key areas. Started off with the finance stuff and told you that you needed to make sure that you were making financial decisions with a sensible approach, keeping clear records and making sure that you know what was happening. So at any point in time, you can have a snapshot at that moment in time, what's happening in your finances. Consider the people that you hire. Make sure you've got right people in the right places who are willing to challenge and question the way things are. And don't forget to look at yourself to see if you're best placed to be running the business going forward after it's up and running for a period of time. Your role for the business may be something quite different. Think about processes. Think about having consistent processes that are recorded for anybody to follow. Anybody who needs to follow those processes can actually be following them without needing to go chasing down yourself or anybody else to do that stuff. And finally, technology. Think about technology that needs to be efficient and effective, that's always constantly helping you to do things and brings a benefit to the business. Like people, like money, like processes, everything has got to be a return on investment for the business. So thank you very much for your time. I'm more than happy to answer questions, share information, talk to you more about this stuff, reach out to me with these details at any point in time. That's it from me. Thank you very much for taking the time. I hope you've learnt some interesting things from what I've said, and take care and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye bye now.